so now I'm kind of thinking how, we're falling short of this in the modern world, how we're falling short of this evolved nest. And, some ways is maybe there isn't breastfeeding. And, sometimes I know mothers can't do that, or not bed sharing. But then there's these other things that come up as kids get older, whereas like too much structure, right? Or like throwing them right into the school and to this kind of academic, um, like they call it rigorous academic learning or something like that. We keep seeing that because now we're in that space where we're looking how to for a school for our oldest son, and so we see that a lot. And for me and my wife, it's like a turnoff. Rigorous, like we're just like no, like he doesn't need rigorous academic stuff right now.
He
Um,
needs rigorous play. That's what.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, so then you have the play, which kind of gets taken away a lot, or it's not nourished as much as it should be. And then the thing that I feel is like missing, especially in big cities, is like nature. Like we were not, I live in New York City, and you have parks and stuff like that, but it's just not the same. We do get to go to Poconos, Pennsylvania, and family has a house out there, and there's a nice property, and it's like a pond, and it's that's way more of like what I consider nature. But those are like some of the pieces that I'm thinking. What are some other things that are kind of missing in the modern world that fall short of this kind of optimal evolved nest?
Well, the emphasis on reading uh, early is just a problem because it's the right brain, as you know from your reading of interpersonal neurobiology, it's the right hemisphere of the brain that's growing your know-how for living, for your social emotional intelligences, your ability to do stuff in the world with your body, and that requires lots of play, full body, whole body play with other people. And that's what children should be doing throughout childhood, not sitting at a desk and doing worksheets or memorizing this or that, or, practicing vowels or something. When they're ready, yes, you can help children learn those kinds of things, and they can learn much more quickly if they're motivated to do it when they're ready, and they're forcing it down their throat on somebody else's schedule. So, and especially for boys, the Richard Reeves, I think, of Boys and Men suggested, he called what he said was redshirting boys. Don't send them to school until they're 7 or 8 because their brains aren't ready for that kind of thing. They need to move around. Again, it's they're developed more slowly. And why put them in situations where they're going to feel ashamed and incompetent? You don't want to do that. Even with a 2-year-old, you don't want to say no to them and put them in situations where they get frustrated because their whole motivation is to move and learn, from touching and trying everything out. And so parents need to put their children in situations where they can do that, not in places where they have to keep saying no or grab them and hold on to them or whatever. That's going to build an anxiety for the long term. So I think our culture in general just doesn't understand child development. It doesn't understand how to build the proper species typical human being. We somehow have let the almost academics decide on what's important, right? There was a book back in 1928 by John Watson, who was the head of the American Psychological Association. He wrote a book on parenting. And he didn't know anything about parenting, but he wanted the children to be proper, polite, motivated undergraduates in his classes. And so he thought, oh, I'll tell the parents how to raise their babies so that my students will be good. So he told them, oh, well, don't touch them too much. You can pat them on the head once in a while and leave them in the crib so mom can do her work around the house. I mean, it's just really crazy. And we still have that behavioristic orientation in the Western, and especially in the States, not paying attention to the research and thinking we can condition them like a little rat or a plant, just feed and water them once in a while, give them some light, So there's just a huge gap in knowledge. And also part of it is the adults themselves were raised in a detached way. It's really parent detachment that is encouraged by the culture. Um, so don't spoil the baby. That's really, you don't want the baby to rely on you. If you pick them up, you're going to make them spoiled, right? Because they'll depend on you. Oh my God, don't want that. I want them to just leave me alone. That's back to John Watson's thing. So we really have to kind of change the narratives about who children are, what they need, and how to raise a well-functioning human being, which is much more than someone who takes tests and gets A's in school. What else do they know? Native Americans, when they sent their children to white schools voluntarily, this is before all the residential kidnapping to residential schools, their children came back and they said they don't know anything. They don't know how to fish. They don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to find their way home from a distance. They can't stand the cold. They can't stand to be hungry. And I mean, just as like, they don't know how to be human on the earth. So we have to get back to an education that helps children become well-functioning, supportive members of the earth community. And that means know-how for living with all the animals and plants. Hard in the city, right? Because you don't get a lot of experience with directly with wild animals, for example. But there are ways to do it where you can raise gardens, and have journeys, like you said, to the Poconos and such. But yeah, it's a little harder in the city to do the nature connection. But everything else, I think you can do. Make sure you have multiple adults around who will mentor your child. Have multiple age playmates. Make sure there's lots of cuddling like you're doing. And have healing practices. There's a great book called Playful Parenting, Lawrence Cohen. And he talks about, he focuses on attachment and how important that is to maintain. And he suggests that when you get out of sorts with one another, the parent and child, have a pillow fight and let the child be in charge. And then, the child will get out some of that resentment and so on. Or, have imaginative play together where you act out different parts, but let the child be in charge of that. And then they can work through their issues, whatever they might be, if it's somehow they got scared of something or had a nightmare. Yeah,